We're not experts, and the opinions expressed are solely our own. We'll do our best to be factual and correct any errors that might occur at a later date. The main point of this show is taking the fork in the road towards comedy whenever possible. There will be many forks in the road. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Drinking and Talking Animals. I'm Bob.
I think I'm Mark.
I'm George, for sure.
Definitely, George. Mark's going to do where twice today, because where the hell are we, Mark? Again.
We are at the Pacific Northwest Exotic and Reptile and Exotic Animal Show. Holy crap.
Yeah.
In the lovely town of Puyallup, on the Washington State Fairgrounds, in the Mattress Firm Multiplex.
It's multiplex now, not showplex?
Showplex? Yeah, probably.
Well, whatever, you know.
Hey.
Should have wrote that down.
Yes.
Yeah, probably should have.
Yeah. And of your doing, we also have a guest today. Would you like to introduce her?
I think she could introduce herself.
Bang.
My name is Tasia Larsen, and I have been vending for the Pac Northwest show since 2015.
Yeah.
And I do art.
Art.
Yeah.
What kind of art?
All kinds of art. I started out really heavily doing taxidermy, which is the name where my name for my business came from, which is Postmortem Pets. And I have since kind of tipped more into doing paintings rather than taxidermy, only because of the space in my house is not really friendly for taxidermy anymore.
Well, you don't have a coffee table?
No, I do. The neighbors in the new house don't like it when I'm dissecting animals in the backyard. So,
Well, you know, to each their own.
Well, as long as you're not dancing around them.
no.
Yeah.
Just be like, mind your business.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't look then. Gosh.
Yeah.
Go away,
Exactly.
Karen.
Yeah.
That's funny. I watched an episode of Bob's Burgers last night where this guy's grandmother was doing anthropomorphic taxidermy on squirrels. And they had all of these crazy different types like pirate squirrel, cowboy squirrel, pretty much anything you could think of squirrel.
That's
But
so funny.
yeah,
Yep.
there was she actually peeled one in front of the kids, and it was pretty brutal. And at the end, they dumped a bucket full of squirrel blood down the stairs to try and act like the place was haunted to scare off potential buyers. It was awesome.
That's
I love
amazing.
Bob's Burgers is great.
Yeah, I have to check that episode out. I haven't seen it. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't want to steal any thunder from you today, but I needed to let everyone know that I'm on a 69-day streak with Wordle.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty important for everyone to know. When I hit 69 this morning, I just laughed. I was like,
Nice.
I have to announce that.
Bob's favorite number.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. Yeah, usually that's why we have the bell, too. Although I didn't give you a bell. I should have. Right.
Ding.
Might as well get through this drink and snack, and then we got a lot to cover today regardless.
Well, to drink, we are drinking Olipop Classic Root Beer. It has prebiotics, botanicals, and plant fiber. This actually has 9 grams of fiber, which is 32% of your daily requirement.
Nice.
So,
Liquid fiber.
George is a little choked up over it.
Yeah. It has a bit of a diety flavor to it, but it's nothing that,
No,
you know,
it's got stevia in it.
yeah,
Stevia leaves.
stevia.
Is the
Stevia.
fiber at the bottom?
Yeah, you got to shake it up. We should have had you shake it up before you opened it.
Oh, it's got things like cassava.
Yeah.
It's got a whole bunch of stuff
There's a
in it.
ton of stuff in here.
Yeah.
Marshmallow root.
That's why I started drinking it, because I found myself drinking way too much, like Coca-Cola and just other things like that, and my body just stopped agreeing. And because I'm like kind of addicted to sugar, I had to find something to replace rather than cut cold turkey. And when I found these, I found that it satisfied that sugary root beer flavor for me, but doesn't make me feel like I'm gonna have a sugar crash later. And then when I realized how much other good ingredients it had, that's why I kept going with it. And it's not, there's no sucralose in it. The diety soda flavor that you taste is stevia, which is natural. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I chose that.
Yeah. And no high fructose corn syrup. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying no to sugar. I'm just saying one step at a time.
Yeah.
Well, and consuming that much sugar in a beverage, we get enough in everything else because
Yes.
they find a way to pack it into just about everything. I'm sure that if I knew the Korean word for sugar, I'd know how much is in this.
Oh yeah.
Because what are we snacking on,
Yeah,
Mark?
I don't know what those are.
These are
I couldn't tell which way to hold the package.
These are from South Korea, and these are Q cakes, and it's their milk
Yeah.
bubble tea flavor.
Yeah.
I like bubble tea. This
Yeah. I
has
do
me,
too.
This has me scared, but hopefully it's delicious.
Uh-oh, Max has gone in for it.
Yeah. It's like an anchor with a roof and 3 claws under it.
He's not making
Like,
a fade.
whatever that means.
I can't get into mine. Oh, there it goes.
Well, it will require some strength.
It looks like a little cake.
Yeah.
Got some weight to it.
I'm gonna say initially it kind of reminds me of a Fig Newton.
That is kind of what I thought it was going to be just looking at the picture of it. I expected the stuff in the middle to be a little more orb-like since it's supposed to mimic bubble tea.
To be a little more salamander egg-like.
It reminds me of the flavor of like red bean,
Yeah,
in like Japanese
the mochi balls and
candies
things
and stuff like
yeah.
that that I find. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely
okay.
getting a little fig in there and maybe there's some like dark cocoa even weirdness coming out of these. Almost like what you're looking for in a really good imperial stout. It's got a lot of those like, dark stone fruit flavors. Or, I guess fig, date. I love it all. Raisin.
Yeah, why not?
Not bad, honestly. It'll be probably a decent review at the end, I'd say. A little dry. Good thing we have a beverage to go
Yes.
with them. I can see why you'd probably want a bubble tea, I guess.
I think you should
alongside
just shove
this.
the whole thing in your mouth at once.
Yeah, exactly. And then just, to get all choked up. Like the cinnamon challenge. It's the bubble tea cake challenge. Yeah, see if we can get
Yes.
3 in our mouth. Let's see. Social media, find us at Drinking and Talking Animals on Instagram and Facebook. And where can we find you?
So I am on Instagram as Postmortem Pets. I am also found on Facebook as Postmortem Pets. I do have a website, which is postmortempets.com. It is still in the process of being flushed out and finished, but it is up, and I do have a bunch of my art prints available for sale.
Excellent. Hit us with a commercial, Max, and then we're going to get into some more interview. And we have an animal today, but
Yep.
it's not going to be like a normal show. Plus, I got to swallow this damn tea cake.
Is it ever a normal show?
What's up, Scream Team? Max Fosberg here to tell you about a Chatter Network show called the Silver Screams Podcast. Join me and my 2 friends, Derek and Kristen, as we watch some of our favorite scary movies and then talk about it. Not just what happens on the screen either. Want to know how a ragtag group of friends turned $300,000 into one of the most iconic franchises in horror history? The people behind the camera are just as important and are part of the discussion as well. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcast fix. Stay spooky, Scream Team.
And we're back.
We are. So I'm interested in knowing, like, where in your taxidermy days do you get the supplies needed? Because I'm assuming you're not going to Michael's.
No, that's actually a really good question. So for me, it's really important to know when I am working with the animals that it was ethically sourced. I do not like to get stuff that came from like fur farms and stuff like that. It's really important to me to track those things. So if I can't verify its source and the source to be ethical, I just won't use it. Oftentimes, being so ingrained in the reptile community, I actually have a lot of people who know that I do taxidermy that will donate their animals that have since passed, oftentimes from zoos or even like just any of the breeders out here that have like just excess animals that end up it's really morbid. It's kind of hard for me to say, but like oftentimes in breeding, sometimes stuff can happen that's not ideal, and the quality of life for the animal would not be good. And so ultimately, they are humanely euthanized to preserve the quality of life. If they were born deformed or some other oddity, and those times are often donated to me. And if it's like skeletons and skulls, I actually do a lot of trading for that. I trade art a lot. I also do custom like pet things for people. So for example, like it is illegal for me to taxidermy dogs and cats to sell them, but it is legal for me to process like somebody's personal pet that has passed, and so I will do that for people. And that's kind of where I've been. Like I said, I took a little bit of a break just because my new house isn't super friendly to doing taxidermy in my backyard like I used to be able to do freely. But
like you need a shed.
I do need a shed. Yes,
Yeah.
I do need a shed, and I try to be sensitive when talking about taxidermy because there are so many animal lovers, and we are here at a show where people love animals. And I just want to reiterate that it's really important to make sure that if you're working with taxidermy, please be ethical about it, because there are a lot of people who will poach animals for the sake of taxidermy.
Yes.
And it's not nice. Don't do it.
Right.
Hey, where'd you get this giraffe?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not like you're dumpster diving behind Petco.
No.
So, I think that it's relatively ethical. My buddy, when he first got into taxidermy, he was just picking up roadkill.
Oh, yeah.
Roadkill's a
That's
great source.
an excellent source.
That is an
And,
excellent source.
We saw a lot of roadkill from a really unusual biology teacher in high school as well, that was kind of had a morbid side.
I am also a biology teacher. I teach high school biology, and we talk about that a lot, actually. We
Nice.
talk about the taxidermy. That's how we talk about anatomy. Fun fact about me, it's probably a little weird fact about me. I carry 2 machetes in my car at all times.
Yeah.
In the case of roadkill,
Lefty and righty.
Yeah. Well, it was either that or because Insane Clown Posse.
yes. I mean, I'm just saying, 5 foot tall girl with a little machete, just
Well, even
Don't mess
2
with her.
machetes.
2 machetes, double
Right.
fisting the machetes. Yeah,
That's perfect.
But yes, for the sake of roadkill that's possibly too large to take home, there's some roadside macheteing sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Well,
go into more detail.
And I think on this particular show, I think we're really invested in, revealing this kind of thing to our entire audience.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find any squeamish folks here at this table. So
Good,
we
good.
are willing to go wherever you want to go, and don't be shy about it for sure. I am totally interested in this stuff, to tell you the truth.
Back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I wasn't doing the taxidermy part, but I was doing tanning.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
I was doing,
Yep.
and mostly roadkill, or some of my friends, they would go hunting, and it was
You
like,
stuffed a lot of animals.
no, but I would clean
On the
their
side of the road.
squirrels and rabbits. I would clean them for them, and then I got the fur in
Yeah.
return.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay.
Yep.
That's
So-
actually really cool. During the springtime, and for those that are listening, I guess, if you're not squeamish, oftentimes that's when you find a lot of possums on the road,
Yep.
especially in the Pacific Northwest. And possums are like one of my favorite mammals.
They're cool. I've had
But sometimes you find a mama, and it's really sad, that's been hit by a car or whatnot, and if it seems fresh, I always check, because there's oftentimes live babies still on her body or in her pouches, and you can bring them to like local rescues and stuff like that. And
rescued quite a few opossums, and people don't realize that their fur is so soft.
it's so soft.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. We had an unfortunate incident while we had a house guest here last year. One of my friends from just out of high school, he was freaking out because he was outside, and our 2 boxers went out and attacked a mother possum in the corner of our yard.
Yeah.
And the babies managed to kind of disperse themselves, but none of them made it. I think
Aw.
Mom did.
Yeah.
They scrambled under the fence as fast as they could. The babies could fit under, but I don't think Mom did an exhaustive search, and she at that point was playing dead in the stupor that they
Yeah.
get into.
Yep.
And we had to leave her alone for probably a solid 90 minutes so that she could revive and move on. But she lived, but the babies unfortunately
That's sad.
didn't move along. So I found them in various places. One was I found it long dead under my recycle can. So they were looking for any place to hide after the
Poor
crazy dog attack.
Yeah.
But and that's the unfortunate part about pets outside. Although that possum invaded their space, and you can't always account for that. So.
Yep. Exactly.
And back to my biology teacher, the weirdest thing I think he ever did is we had to dissect, in our senior year for advanced biology, we had to dissect fetal pigs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he actually taxidermied one and put it on his corkboard, like it was walking up the corkboard. So he was an unusual fellow.
I thought you
My
were
kin-
going to say made a face mask out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. That would have been weird. Like, yeah, there was no Silence of the Lambs things going on, right? Let's see. So I saw the one piece of art that it was awesome to me was the big articulated snake skeleton that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of wraps across the front of the larger format painting, and
Yeah.
So do you work with a lot of skeleton or
Yes.
bones as well?
I would say I don't do stuffing animals really. My thing is skeletal articulations. A lot of people will take like furs and like make mounts and stuff. I don't see as many of the skeletal articulations as I think would be really cool to see.
Right.
And so for me, like that's where my interest is. And snakes are really cool. Sometimes I get my snakes by trading. I'll actually get like an articulated skeleton from another person who does that. We'll trade art, and I'll use that, and we'll collab and do art stuff. But when you, I guess, in the process of processing a snake, it's a little bit different than how you might do a different skeletal because their bones are so thin and tiny, and it's really interesting and fascinating. Those that are listening, if they don't know what carrion beetles are or domestic beetles, that's how I use to make my snake skeletons because you deflesh them and you take off as much of their like their muscle tissue, and you take out their
Their-
innards,
their
and
meats?
stuff like their meats.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're sweetmeats.
Yep. And then you position them, and like you use like pins or stakes or whatever, and you position them in the position you want them to be in. Like the I don't know if I didn't bring that one. Like in like the little wiggles that snakes do, right? And then I use like a small fan with like a little bit of heat behind it, not a lot, and basically make like a snake jerky. Like, sounds really gross, but that's what I call them, my snake jerkies, because you have to dry them out to put them in with the beetles. Put them in with the beetles, and the beetles come through and they eat all of the meat off of the bones, but they keep all the tendons in place. So like 90% of the skeletal structure is intact in the position which you put it in the first place.
So the tendons and the cartilage and everything kind of seizes up and whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they stay like that. If you guys get a chance to make it back to the booth, I do have a rat snake right now. It's my last one, but I have a rat snake right now that I put up, and it's in like this really cool S pattern, and you can kind of still see like the connective tissue in between the vertebrae and all the ribs and stuff, and it's basically like it's natural glue, and it just kind of holds it together, and it's a morbid process, and I would much rather the animal be alive, but I'm also just so fascinated by how bodies move, and when I dissect the animals and when I deflesh them and all that, I'm learning every time. Like I find cool things, and I find like the anatomy, and like it's a really interesting process. So I can't wait to be in a house where I can get back into it.
So for that process, what kind of substrate is there a substrate involved for the beetles themselves? Is it dirt, sand, a mix?
Usually, just like aspen shavings or something.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I use.
Just like
Yeah.
bedding material.
just like what like the same type of stuff you'd see at like a pet store for like when people have like pet rats and stuff, like aspen or cedar shavings and stuff
So
like
are
that.
the beetles like proliferating in kind of their own
Oh, yeah.
ecosystem
Yep.
alongside this?
Yep.
So
They go snake jerky, and it makes them really
We
happy.
love living there.
And-
So
yep.
then they make
Yeah.
more,
They make
more
babies.
right. Do you ever end up with an excess of the beetles as a byproduct?
Oh yeah, it's been a while. I don't have any domestics right now. Like I said, after I moved, I had to unfortunately kind of downsize everything. But when you do have a colony of domestic beetles, you do end up in excess. They can fly, but they actually make really good insect feeders for other animals. So like if you have bug eater reptiles or bug eater pets, you can actually use them as feeders. Otherwise, I would just cup them up and just honestly, I was giving them away.
Right.
You know, because
And,
I
and
ended
some
up,
people do sell them.
yeah,
Right.
you can sell them.
That's what I was wondering
Yeah,
if it's
yeah.
Yep.
another part of the business.
And their larva is not like a standard beetle larva, is that it's kind of fuzzy.
They look like baby. If anybody's ever seen a baby ladybug, they look
Yeah,
almost
yeah. Oh.
just like a baby
Yeah.
ladybug.
Yeah.
They're just
Yes, they do.
longer and black.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, we used to see them and their husks all the time in Arizona. You know, like they love to molt on stucco. Or
yeah.
emerge as their final ladybug. So my dad would have to pressure wash the side of the house almost every year after the great ladybug emergence. So yeah, he wasn't big into weeding either. So we had like 6 foot tall weeds. So we had the perfect environment for ladybugs. I mean,
we're so happy.
I could literally catch like a jar full of ladybugs way
Yep.
back in the day.
Yep.
I don't know why, because there's nothing you can do with a jar full of ladybugs, but
just
it looked
really
cool
good at
for a
it.
moment. like
Somebody's got to
Right.
show
yeah.
some type of
like who
talent
wants a
early
jar
on.
full of
Yeah.
ladybugs?
I actually had a neighbor. Gosh, I was so little. I don't remember. I was less than 10 years old probably, and we lived out on Silver Lake out in Eatonville. And it's a memory that I have where my neighbor would actually pay me like a nickel per ladybug or something. Like I was a
Wow.
little kid, and he did like gardening and everything. Ladies are so wonderful. Ladybugs are wonderful for gardening because they eat all the aphids and stuff like that. And so my house, for some reason, was like the up in the attic was like this weird, perfect little environment, and we would have like these hatches of ladybugs. Don't know why. All this stuff happened. I don't know why it happened. We tried to prevent it. They just came back all the time. And so there'd be like hundreds of ladybugs just crawling up in our like this attic window that we had. And he would pay me, like I said, like a nickel per ladybug. And because little 8-year-old me is like, oh my gosh, I can make $1, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd go collect these ladybugs and put them in the jar.
like candy. Woo!
Yep, and he would just go let them go in his garden. And yeah, no, I actually still have the 50-cent pieces that he gave me for ladybugs. Like,
Wow.
that's
Cool.
like a weird childhood thing and totally
Yeah,
off
that's
topic,
cool.
but also just kind of one of those weird memories. Yeah.
Hey, the beginning says we're gonna take those forks in the road.
Yeah,
we do.
that's true.
Yeah, we love it.
This is a ladybug fork.
Yeah, exactly. What are you into? So lately, you're just more into the art side of it. Do you prefer painting one thing over another, or it's just wherever inspiration strikes?
So for the reptile expos, I definitely lean more towards reptile-related art for the fans. I actually started out breeding reptiles well before 2015, when the show prior was ran by the Bean Farm before Pac Northwest. They kind of swapped; they took over, right? And I'd been breeding, like I bred certain varieties of colubrid and ball pythons and stuff like that. So weird to think it was over 10 years ago now. It's wild to me. But I digress. And when Pac Northwest took over, Jeff saw a piece of art I had done and was like, "You're mine now," like scooped me right up into like the Pac Northwest family and was like, "You're gonna make flyers for me." And so we have had this deal, and now I do donation paintings and all kinds of stuff. I do tons of reptile things I've countless reptiles for this show. I donate, one painting per show per year. So sans the weird 3 COVID years, I've donated tons of paintings to Pac Northwest and US Arc and stuff like that.
Like
and so all
charity
reptiles.
donations?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have had a chance to talk to US Arc or not, but they do a lot of work and help keep our our rights for keeping our pets. Like I understand there's a lot of like controversy and like, oh, who needs a big snake and blah 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 blah. But it's like, these are our pets. These are animals that we love, and there's a lot of dedication and stuff from these breeders and all these pet owners. And so when Fish and Wildlife comes in and says, we're gonna take away your pets, like that feels really bad.
Right.
And so USARK fights for our rights as not only pet owners, but also like outreaches and educational programs and stuff. It affects all of that as well. So a lot of my paintings have gone towards those raffles, and Pac Northwest donates just a bunch of money to USARK to help keep things going. So I'm always happy to donate. I'm always happy to give back to USARK and what they do for us as educational people and pet owners and stuff. So
And we may as well segue into it, because I was going to bring that up
Oh,
anyway
okay,
about
yeah.
USARK. But currently in our state, we have two bills that are hopefully won't hit the floor, but will possibly. It's SB 5148 and HB 1157, and basically the bills they were tried to be introduced onto the floor last year. They didn't, and they basically didn't rewrite it because all the same typos are in it. And basically what this bill wants to do is eliminate shows like this. If you want to take a snake to the classroom to show the kids and educate them, you won't be able to do that. The people that make their livings educating people at large events, that will no longer be allowed. And it basically, my thinking is, and it's not just reptiles, it's anything animal other than a dog or a cat. And the problem with that is once that goes into effect, then the dog and cats are next. Because it's all part of the same groups.
And is that a push nationally?
Oh, yes, it does push every state. Oregon will probably be following suit here because the same thing happened last year at about the same time. Again, it didn't get far enough. And what a lot of times what they'll do too is they'll take the law and they'll say, okay, fine, we'll just take this animal out and this animal out, because they know that later on, if it does get passed, then it can be amended to include this group of animals or that group of animals. And we're not talking about people taking a lion or a tiger into the classroom. We're talking people taking a parrot. We're, bringing
Right.
fish, bringing fish into the classroom.
Having pets in my biology classroom, right?
Yes.
Like exotic animals. Like
Yes.
I can't,
Yeah.
I won't be able to have, Timmy the tortoise anymore, So,
Yeah. Or rabid mongoose.
right, yeah.
Don't touch him.
Yeah.
And USARK
Like, who's had herpes, kids?
yeah.
is a national outreach, and they have done immense work. I've been supporting them for a lot of times, and it's not just reptiles.
Right.
Reptiles tend to be the gateway
Yeah.
because
Well,
people are not as,
Right.
but they're
it's a
not
fear.
realizing. You're seeing reptiles in commercials now. Well, that's because there are more of them out there, and it's becoming more acceptable.
Right.
TV programs, there's a bearded dragon in the background
Yeah.
as a pet.
Right.
So it's just it's
And then there's
I'm just going to say it's PETA striving to basically
Yeah.
make all animals, even eliminate the dogs and the cats.
Yep.
no
Well-
eagles at football games.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, they do fly the hawk at the
Yep.
Hawks game, so yeah, that would probably stop. But yeah,
Now-
I think PETA is to Mark as China is to you, George.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
see some similarities.
Yeah, PETA is Mark's China.
If you want to learn more about USARK and how you can help and support them, you can go to www.usark.org.
It's ARK.
ARK. USARK.
Perfect.
.org.
Yes. Well, I guess I could have read it right off your shirt.
That's right.
Like, good Lord, I'm such a moron sometimes. Yeah, and I think it goes to some weird places too, because like right now you've got that problem in Florida where they're overrun with what is it, pythons, or
Well, and the crazy thing about that, the biggest guy that's creating the charge to do stuff about it is the reason they're there.
Yeah.
right.
His facility, it was a facility that was not properly protected. It was not in a good area. It was in an area of hurricanes. It was not a new building. It was an old rickety building, and it blew down, and he had 10,000
Right.
Burmese pythons in there.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
It's not from people. Yes, some people do release, but that's not what it's from. Most of these animals that are roaming around in Florida are not escapees. They were either released in a hurricane or released because somebody was looking to make a profit.
Yep.
Right. And it's turned into, kind of a disaster for Florida because they're losing so many of their fauna. I mean, it's an unnatural extinction event, but, I've read that it's getting to the point where they're starting to attack crocodiles and alligators or whatnot, as a source of food because everything else is freaking gone. And then, since there's such a huge market, I mean, there's kind of a no-limit ability to go out and kill these stupid things. But then you have places like California that say, well, guess what's illegal here? Python skins. So you don't have the ability to export the product you get naturally by eliminating the hugest threat they have to their ecosystem.
Yeah, haven't we learned the easiest way to eliminate animals to pay money for it?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's how you also had the problem when they started collecting the rat tail bounties and they started seeing all these rats running around with no tails and figured out, they weren't killing the actual rats. They were just chopping off the tails to get paid.
I would have designed that trap.
Yeah, because that was Megan's interesting fact to give me because I said, she goes, what are you covering today? And I said, the beauty rat snake. And she goes, oh, did you know in Chicago there's 3 rats for every person? And I said,
wow,
weird fact, but, I don't know how that relates to a snake, but I'll take it with me.
It's
so,
a rat.
there you go.
It's a rat.
Yeah, you're welcome, Megan.
How do you get your snake? How do you get your rats? Go pick them up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they live with you
I'd like
in a
my
lot of
rats
places in Chicago, so, they're hard to keep out, but... Yeah, so rodent skulls I know is a large part of that. I mean, stripping the bones, is that similar to the snakes?
Absolutely. It's done in a very similar way. When you've got rodents and stuff, their bones are a little bit more hardy depending on the size. Like if it's a larger rodent, like mice are still pretty, they're little. They got little bones, so... the domestics oftentimes will eat right through the bones of smaller animals, but the bigger the animal gets, the bones are bigger, and the beetles say, nah, I don't really care about that. So it's easier to use the beetles on bigger animals. The larger the specimen get, oftentimes there's a process called maceration, and I will tell you, it's disgusting. I don't like to do it. Maceration is where you...
Have to chew it a lot?
Yeah. No.
That's mastication.
Yeah. No. Where you basically put the specimen into a like a bucket, right, or whatever thing you have. Oftentimes people use like fish heaters and stuff, and you warm up the water. And I almost probably don't have to tell you what comes next, but you leave it there, and it rots, and the
putrefaction.
The flesh comes off of the animal, and then you have to take the bones, go through like a degreasing process.
Yep.
And sometimes, depending on how the degreasing process goes, you then have to bleach the bones, and it's a really hard process. It's really long, and I don't think people realize. Hi guys.
And we all know what a rotten rat smells like.
Yes.
Too.
So I was gonna say, if you've ever smelled the smell of rotten flesh, imagine that 10 million fold in a bucket of macerated goo of an animal.
Yeah.
And people do it. They do it all the time. But with that being said, it's just a part of the process in taxidermy.
Right.
You don't always have to do it. Some people will boil, like a lot of hunters will boil like the skulls and stuff of like the deer they catch. They'll boil it, and then you can take like a wire brush and you can wire brush the meat off. I don't realize how gross taxidermy is until I have to explain it out loud to someone. But with that being said, it's just part of the process. And rodents, we got rodent skulls. I have tons of like muskrat skulls. I get rat skulls from people or rats from people, all kinds of stuff like that. So
That's
yeah.
perfect. That I would imagine they're, the way they reproduce at a fast rate, and I don't think they're especially long-lived. So, you're never going to run out of supplies at some point with rodents.
Yep. Rats only live like 3 to 5 years typically, I think,
Yeah.
depending on their health and how you raise them. So even though it's sad, because rats, I will say, here's one of those fork in the roads. I know a lot of people are really grossed out by them, like freaked out by them, but they are so smart. Rats are smart. They are clean in their own ways.
They can be housebroken.
They can be housebroken, right? You can basically potty train them.
Yeah.
You can teach them tricks, and they're soft and they're fluffy. So I get a lot of people who will. I'm kind of one of those people where it's like, I don't care if you don't like the animal, but please don't badmouth it to me, because I'll get real cold really fast with you, and like you won't like me anymore.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a huge fan of their weird fingernails touching me, because when first grade, we call her my first girlfriend. I think my mom started doing that just to embarrass me, but. She had 2 pet rats, and we used to have them crawl all over us, and it would just kind of give me a little bit of the willies, like the closer they get to your neck and the more sensitive areas, it was like,
it's very tickly.
woo!
Even though I like them, I don't really like them crawling all over me either, because you can't clip their nails, and they're like sharp and stuff, but I still think they're cool animals, and mainly to say is that because we're here drinking and talking about animals, and we're at an animal expo, it might not be for you, but that doesn't mean you don't have to respect its life, especially as a biology teacher. Like, by the end of the year, I've got my students, like, cupping spiders for me, because, I start at the beginning of the year with these kids who, they're scared of spiders. They're scared of, or even, like, the other teachers I work with, like, they'll smash the spider, and I'm like, and we go through, like, a whole thing about how valuable spiders are in our ecosystem, and I'm like, hey, you don't have to be scared of them, or you don't have to, you don't have to be friends with them, but you should respect them as a living being in our ecosystem, and understand the importance they have. And so by the end of the year, I've got my kids being like, Miss Larsen, there's a spider. And we'll go as a classroom, we'll cup it together, we'll look at it, decide what kind of spider it is. I'll give them a fact, and then we release it. And it becomes like a tradition. It's really cool. And I have single-handedly changed the hearts and minds of dozens and dozens of kids and adults on, smushing spiders in their homes even, so
Yeah.
That's that.
Back to the rats and kids. I've told the story before. When I was in elementary school in the 6th grade, one of the classes had trained rats as a class thing, and they traveled all over showing off the trained rats. At the Seattle Center, they were in National Geographic.
That's cool.
They went pretty much big time for a while, but
Nice.
the room did smell like rat pee all the time. Luckily, I was in the class that did rockets, so it was way cooler.
Yeah.
Just gotta clean them more, man.
Yeah. Exactly. I guess the downside of removing them from your home is most of the time they were born there and they'd lived their whole life there if it wasn't for us trying to think we're doing the right thing. But,
Yes.
it is what it is. I mean, at least it's better than squishing them.
Yes.
Because I'm not a squisher either. I'll capture pretty much anything I can and return it outside, whether it wants to be there or not, With the exception of crickets. I had a cricket that annoyed me so bad in my office. As soon as I found that thing, it was dust under the heel. But
See, I've got a bearded dragon. That's a complete garbage pit. If I find a bug that's bothering me, this is completely opposite of what I just said. But yes, if I have a
At least
cricket,
you can say
your
But you're
food now.
recycling it.
I'm like, hey Bruce, let's go.
it had a chance.
Yeah,
So, yeah, right?
responsible recycling.
I was like, hey, we had a deal, but then you started keeping me up at night. It's time to go.
Good luck.
Yeah. I guess quickly back to the snake skeleton.
Yeah.
Is there a whitening process, or do they pretty much come out after the beetles in a mostly white format like that?
I would say mostly they do. Because snake skeletons, again, they're so intricate and delicate. Whitening them can be, I don't want to say like dangerous isn't the right word, but
Destructive.
they can be destructive to them. Honestly, if I feel like the bones are just a little too yellow, I will lightly airbrush some like eggshell, not white because white's not natural, but like an eggshell color, just where I feel like it was a little too yellow or bones were a little too greasy, I will just lightly put like an eggshell color over
A little
them.
makeup on it.
A little makeup on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think ivory and eggshell are more natural bone colors anyway, or
Yeah.
bone white. There
And-
probably is a bone white, I
And,
bet.
and it's art too. So right, like I try
Pantone,
to,
George?
yeah.
Oh no.
I like to bring when people ask me why I do taxidermy, I say, I want to bring beauty back to this animal who in life was beautiful, and in taxidermy, I like to say this animal can now continue to be beautiful. One of my some of my jewelry that I have, I sell these earrings. I haven't made them in a long time. I have a few pairs left, but I had this pet, red-tailed boa. I loved her very much. Her name was Reba, and she passed away of snake cancer. So F cancer, there's that. But she got
You
her
can
own.
say the word.
No.
I can say
You can curse.
fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck cancer.
Yeah, there we go.
So fuck cancer, and so Reba passed away of snake cancer, and I processed her bones, and I often tell the people who buy her, I always tell them the story like this is Reba, like she was my pet, she was my companion, she was my friend. And every time I sell a couple of her vertebrae, I feel like she's getting to travel, right? Like, so a little bit of her, she's getting to like travel, she's getting to see, she's getting to go places. And like when I ship the earrings off, I'm like, oh, Reba's going to Australia, or Reba's going here, Reba, and although she only had limited vertebrae, so at this point, what I have left of her, I'm keeping for myself, but I know that I've given her back a little bit of life in a weird way,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say about all my things. I like to give life back to my critters. And so talking about like whitening the bones, sometimes I don't. Sometimes they're pink. If I really maybe don't like the way the skeleton turned out, I will purposely make them like bright pink or black or whatever. And
Yeah. Artistic license.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's art. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Why don't we show some of your prints? Would it be easiest for me to put them up here? Or, okay. And then you can tell us what we're looking at.
Sure. I'll just hand you a pile.
All right, so where are we going? Okay. Okay, I will.
Yeah. Hand it to me. I think it's going this way.
Okay.
Is that in view? There we go.
So this print, this actually was from some time ago. I think this is 2016. All of my prints I
that's
signed.
a long time ago.
Yeah, all of my prints I signed with like the date, like it'll say my signature and it'll say like whatever year it was at the end. I think that one says 16. That's a Goniurosaurus. I might be butchering the name, but it's a Chinese cave gecko. I actually made that painting. I made that painting for a friend. She's actually here, and I think she was on your show before.
Rachel?
For Rachel for
Yeah.
Happy Gecko stickers.
Yes.
She's a really, really good friend of mine, and I made that painting for her, and so now I sell prints of it. She used to be someone who bred those geckos and will possibly do that again in the future. That's another of my more like macabre, like that's not obviously not a reptile, right? I don't even know what to call that one, but that's one of my most popular prints. I sell every time. That one is my last one, actually. I have to make more, and it was just kind of came out of me one night. I also like to do silly paintings, and so this one is just a little red-eyed tree frog, and I thought it would be kind of cute. I did it for the last show. And so I like to do weird little silly ones too.
Hang in there, baby.
Yeah, hang in there. Yep. Got his little frog booty in there. Just it had to be a little silly one. So.
Yeah. Are you having technical difficulties, Max? Yeah. I can see that. Internet problems. So I guess I don't need to hold them up for a moment here, but we could describe them, I guess, briefly.
Oh, no worries. So I did a painting of a Australian water dragon. That was actually last year. That's a painting for, I actually made for the owner of Pac Northwest, Jeff. He owns that. That was massive. That's a huge painting. That's like
That was.
like a 4 foot by 3 foot or something like that. It was
Yeah.
big.
I'll
So-
go back to this one just momentarily since
Yeah.
I don't think it ever got captured.
Oh, no worries.
So that's the tree frog.
My little red-eyed tree frog with
Yeah.
him silly little booty. Yep.
They do have silly little booties.
Little booty. This painting, this has captivated most of my followers and my fans. I had this original since I painted it in 2013. There's a long story behind the original painting. We won't go into that. But it has been my most popular painting thus far. I've sold the most prints of this painting thus far. And I finally sold the original this last year. I finally had the heart to let it go to a friend of mine. And they are loving it and giving it a good home.
Does it have a name or did I miss that?
It's a zombie salmon. It's
Zombie
just a
salmon.
zombie salmon. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen fish swimming in the river that don't look far from that.
right?
Yeah,
That's what I was
I
like,
know.
yep. I'm a fisher. I love fishing and stuff like that. It's been a little while, but I got inspired by a fish I saw in the river during spawn time to make that painting. And this last one, obviously it's not the last painting that I have entirely, but it's one of my favorites. I call this one my inner demon. This is another one of my most popular ones. I sell lots and lots and lots of these.
The end of the monkey spawning.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
It looks like a cryptid.
So-
I guess I can get this in here as well.
Yep.
Be a good time for that. There's,
That's my business card.
yeah. Bam.
So, I could have brought my whole booth over here. That I figured you guys could just check. You guys could just check out my website.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what we always figure, rather than interrupting someone's business completely by setting up a bunch of microphones and having some weirdos sit down, it's better just to kind of come off to the side here.
Yeah.
And yeah,
No.
I was hoping for some skulls.
I could have brought some. I only actually have one skull left. Sunday is a hard day to
Oh, true,
show
you're
off my
mostly
stuff. 'cause
sold
I'm
out,
almost
yeah.
all. I think I have
Yeah.
one skull left.
Yeah.
And I keep getting. I'm looking at my phone here, and I've just gotten 2 very large sales, and I'm like, "What's happening right now?"
Nice.
Sweet.
So-
Maybe you need to do podcasts more often.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
that's
For real,
awesome.
I
It's
was
gotta
like,
be
wow.
us.
We're good luck.
So somebody came.
Yeah.
I was like that was a big one. I think I know what painting that was, and I'm kind of like anxious. I'm like, who bought that?
Yeah.
What's the original medium? Is that oil or
Acrylics. Yep. 90% of my work is all in acrylics. I do dabble in watercolor a little bit. I love watercolor, but I usually can't get the same effect that I'm looking for with it. I like very bold, hard colors, and watercolor is just typically a little too soft for me. So,
Yeah, watercolor and monkey demon? They don't.
right.
Yeah.
Monkey demon.
A lot of my medium too. It's a fun technique. A lot of people that are artists kind of know about what they call them. It's called a dirty pour, where you put a bunch of colors of paint in a cup with some chemicals and stuff, and you just plop it out onto the canvas, and it spreads out, and it makes all these cool bubbles of color with all these cool crazings and stuff like that.
I do that at work all the time. I'm a commercial printer, so I'm dealing with blobs of ink, and I often will mix them together, especially metallics in it.
Oh, see, it's so fun. I really like blind boxes. That's kind of one of those weird things I really like. Like if you don't know what you're gonna get when you open the package. I love those things, and so I think that's why dirty pours for me are very similar, because I know the colors I'm putting in, but I actually have no idea what it's going to look like when I finally get it on that canvas.
Right.
And you have to do a lot of manipulating and stuff to move the canvas around and get it to look. So it's kind of like a you don't know what you're going to get type thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The old Forrest Gump box chocolate.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that was on television last night.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I don't know why, but they were going back and forth between Forrest Gump and Shawshank Redemption,
Oh.
which, are totally similar movies.
Oh,
but-
definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know how much time we want to dedicate to the old beauty rat snake today. That's what the animal we were going to talk a little bit about.
Oh.
Just to get into, if you're
Yeah.
interested for that.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, I forgot that he asked me what my favorite animal is. So in the reptile world, it's not actually a Taiwanese beauty snake. It is a cave dwelling rat snake, and it's Elfe. I don't know how. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it.
Actually,
the
it's
thing.
no longer a latte.
It's not a lafe anymore.
No. It is orthorial.
Yeah, it is.
All I know is that it was,
Orthopitis.
They
Orthopitis.
oh, they used to be Ridley eye. So I
Well,
was
no,
like,
they are Orthopitis ridley.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, Tenarius ridley.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And they are my favorite. I wish I actually would have brought up a picture. Maybe you guys can like superimpose one, I guess. Oh yeah, right there. Perfect. Look at that. I love them because they have some of the craziest colors. Like they have bright blue heads. This picture is actually, it's a beautiful picture, but there are some that have even more like just wild color variants where their heads are like cerulean blue and their bodies are just orange, and it goes orange, just all orange all the way down with these yellow stripes, and they're gorgeous. Ever since I saw one, I was captivated. I bought my first one for a measly $150 in California years ago.
Yeah.
There we go.
Don't
That's a
even
good one.
think about it anymore.
That's a good photo.
Yep.
I should have sent you some of my old pets. Biggest regret sale of my entire life. I have never been so upset about a sale that I have made. If I could warp back into time and have those snakes, I would. Because now you can't get a baby for under $400.
Yes.
And a breeding pair, which is what I had, you're talking a couple thousand more, you know.
Definitely.
And they're spicy. They have very, very spicy attitudes, but that's what makes them why I love them. So yeah.
And they're bat feeder specialists.
Yes, they do. Part of my skulls and part of my taxidermy I do are with bat skulls. Although I am eliminating bat skulls from my my product list because I can no longer find them ethically.
No, it's hard. Yeah.
So bat skulls are not my thing. I'll probably start 3D printing them because I think they're gorgeous. Oh, that's a beautiful representation. That's a good one. But yes, the cave-dwelling rat snakes, they will crawl up in the caves and they will hang down and they will snipe bats right out of the sky.
Yeah.
It's wild.
As they're going in or out.
I have an awesome story about that for the end of our show, so you're gonna love it, I suppose. And normally, I try to cover a lot of the taxonomy stuff, but it was so confusing, and I skipped most of the beginning of everything because we kind of know, squamata and, where we move along from there to get to snakes. But Colubridae is the family, and colubr is the Latin word for snake, so makes total sense. And Mark already gave us a little bit about the LFA and how far it's changed. I was just going to stick with it because it's still widely accepted. A lot of people don't keep up with that, and it all happened because of DNA, like we talk about all the time.
And 2022?
Right.
Yeah.
And it basically, it took LFA, and I think it split it into like 8 different things or something.
Well,
There's an absolute ton of them.
They've been splitting out of that for, I'm going to say since the late teens of this,
Right.
2000s. Because none of the North American ones are in it anymore.
Right.
That's cool.
It's all European.
And the etymology, does anyone know what LFA means? Because it is freaking weird.
Go for it.
It means deer skin.
Oh, really?
I don't know why, but in ancient Greek, LFA is the word for deer skin.
And you know what? That kind of makes sense considering that the European versions, there's one that's called a leopard rat snake, and it's got, you could look at that and say it looks like deer skin because of the spotting.
Maybe it was an ancient Greek typo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that's true.
And it helps a little bit to get to species because I just left it as LFA tenera. I don't know how to say that.
I don't know how
really.
to say that.
Yeah.
I know Ridley High, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Denarius is where they moved it once they went to the ortheo.
Yeah. So, right. so I have an old species, I'm sure then, but Tenera, it helps because it was Latin tinea means stripe and aura means tail in
Yeah.
Greek, and snakes are just the huge tails.
Yeah.
Basically, so
That's amazing.
and I didn't do anything subspecies wise because there's a buttload of them, and all we're doing is adding a third word for every subspecies, and it's basically
there's-
just telling you where they are.
Yeah, and there's 10 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One still hasn't been. It's still on the subspecies level. They just hasn't been fully described. And that one is relatively new. It's out of Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam.
That's
Nice.
Yep. They're beautiful. I love
Oh,
them.
they are. So do
Yeah.
we have time for breeding?
I think we can do that. I mean, why not do she's never heard this part, so this is one of Max's major contributions to the show, and we
Let's
all
go.
love it, and Mark hates it.
Oh, let's go.
Ah, yeah. Wrap your cave dwelling tail around me. I'm here for our favorite section. It's time for mating with Mark.
Oh, and it's just so wrong.
I think I hate it too.
I love it.
We'll put a poll up.
That's amazing.
All right. So basically, they are oviparous, which means they lay eggs, and they tend to breed in the spring. And because even in the tropical areas, that is a temperature warm up, and there's more moisture. So there's more of the prey items. Now the males basically, when he's in an area with a female, she's releasing, when she has ovulates, she releases pheromones. And so he picks up those pheromones, and then the tongue starts flickering a heck of a lot more than normal
Yeah,
until he approaches her. And then he approaches her in kind of a herky
as you do.
motion. And then he'll rub his chin along her, he'll twitch along her, and if she's ready, the tail pops up.
Oh, ding!
So,
What does the tail have to do with it?
Yeah.
well, that's where.
That lets the mailman know it's time to take some outgoing mail.
Yeah. And then she also opens up her cloaca.
Well, cloaca. You were
Cloaca,
closer than
cloaca.
normal.
I know, I'm getting there. Then he wraps his body gently around her and inserts one of his 2 hemipenes.
Yeah,
And they can stay locked up for several hours to several days.
right.
Um,
So they never get freaky and do it while they're hanging upside down.
no, that would be a little difficult.
Right. That's for your exhibitionist
Now,
varieties.
if the eggs are fertilized, she will lay them in about 5 to 6 weeks later, and she will do what's called a pre-shed, pre-laying shed, and that's usually about in the 2 week after the eggs are actually fertilized. Now, she can hang on to the sperm for up to 9 months before she lays the egg.
Right. For optimal conditions.
Yeah.
Is that mostly temperature related?
Temperature and right kind of moisture, and also if there's if it's
Food
a dry-
availability.
food availability.
Right.
Now they in the wild they're going to look for an area that's kind of mulchy, a tree hollow or an abandoned rodent burrow. The female stays with the
Or a
eggs,
taken over rodent burrow.
taken over, abandoned, taken over.
Be like, guess what? You're moving out.
Yeah.
You don't need it anymore.
Yep.
Right.
Now the
Dinner and a place to live.
the female will
Lucky.
stay with the eggs, and she literally will guard them by wrapping her body around them, and to help maintain temperatures. If she feels the eggs are getting cold, she starts twitching her body muscles, and that muscle twitching actually generates heat.
I saw that wrapping around thing in a video. They're like tied in a knot around it.
Yeah, and it generates heat and then the eggs hatch in about 70 days. Clutches are between 4 to 25, depending on the size of the snake, and the subspecies. They hatch out at about 11 to 17 inches, 30 to 40 for metric people. And within 14 months will actually be about 4.5 feet long.
Damn.
And then in another 4 months, they'll have grown enough to be able to breed again. Now, when I was breeding them, I usually waited definitely 2 years.
Yeah.
Especially on my females, I tended to go a little longer. The females are going to be bigger than the males. Average size is, of all of them, is 6 to 7 feet. But I owned an individual as 8.5, and I've seen a few that were in 9 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're what they call semi-arboreal, so they spend a little bit of time in the tree. And one of the biggest, nicest displays I ever had was I had a nice forked branch sitting in the center with a lot of live plants in it, and the snake would sit up in it like you would expect a tree boa or green tree python to do. It was really cool.
I saw a lot of enclosures where it was perching up in
Yeah.
Yep.
in the corner.
And they will eat birds, but rodents are their main prey item. And the occasional female will decide, you know what, buddy, I don't want to breed with you, but thanks for the meal.
Yeah, you look delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I got.
Huh. Taking your chances when it's breeding season. Every time. That seems pretty normal for what we talk about.
Hey, you know what? It works
Yeah.
for us too.
Yeah, I knew that two peens were going to be in the picture today,
Yeah.
every time. Right.
Does it matter which one, by the way?
They actually
Is
do
there
have
something-
a
They have a
do
preference.
They do have a preference.
Left or right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
But if they lose one, they still are able to reproduce.
right.
It just
They just don't like it.
Like
well they fumble a little bit more.
right. Like, uh-oh. Lost one of my peens. Yeah, that's a bad day if you're a snake. The day
Yeah.
you lost your left peen. Yeah, it's kind of like Twix. It's left and right. Which is your favorite? I don't think they have their separate factories, but it is
No.
what it is. And I just have a pretty interesting story. I don't even think it's probably a beauty rat snake. Maybe it is. But it's in Mexico, so probably not.
Most likely not.
Anyway, we'll go with it because, I didn't do a whole lot on this one, really. We had two people that have had major experiences with the animal itself. George and I are never that person for the most part, unless we've got random stories about performing rats or catching ladybugs. Right. So anyway, here we go. Cantemo Cave in Mexico is home to hundreds of thousands of bats. And so what? We're talking about snakes today, right? Well, this particular cave is known by another name provided by the inhabitants of the nearby village of Cantemo, and that is Las Cuevas de las Serpientes Colgantes, the Cave of the Hanging Serpents. This cave is hidden away in a jungle forest of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula in 100 miles inland from the ancient Maya ruins of Tulum. The cave, however, is still feared. Yeah, not featured. And it is actually featured now, but we'll talk about that at the very, very end. The cave is still feared by the locals as ancient Maya legends believed that caves were the entrances to the underworld and housed evil cave-dwelling spirits that could harm their children.
Yeah, it's called bat poop.
Yeah. Well, and the bats themselves were associated with the night, death, and sacrifice as well, so it makes for a pretty daunting combination of reasons the locals stay away from these caves and that one in particular. So undeterred, what are we looking at?
That's the actual snake.
Oh, that's the snake. Nice. Undeterred, biologist Boyona Miramontes wanted to study the inhabitants of this cave for himself, and it took quite a bit of convincing for the locals to allow him to enter the cave by himself. He was studying the bats at first, but one night while biking with his assistant, they decided to get a closer look at the bats leaving the cave for their nightly feeding, and once inside the mouth of the cave, they could see hundreds of snakes slithering across the ceiling, even hanging upside down as the bats scurried to leave their home. And then, snap. One of the snakes snatched a bat from midair with incredible precision, and this spurred Miramontes to spend the next 4 months studying this incredible phenomenon, even prompting him to spend several nights sleeping in the cave to confirm that the snakes not only come out to feed when the bats leave, but they also return when the bats come home in the early hours of the morning. Scientists believe this unique group of yellow-red rat snakes have lived in Cantemo Cave for at least 200 years. They're non-venomous, deaf, and nearly blind, which seems like a bad trade-off, but what they gained in this cave is a place at the top of the food chain with no natural predators and ample living space, plus a pantry stocked with their favorite food, bats. And before you start thinking it would be boring to only eat bats, These snakes have a bit of variety, as this cave is home to 6 different species of bat. So you never know what you're going to get when you're snatching blind in the air. It's believed that while hanging upside down, these bats hone their ability to sense the flutter of the bat's wings as they fly past this gauntlet of swaying death and catch their prey with a stunning accuracy. This has since spurred an incredibly unique ecotourism experience, if you dare. You have to sign up with a licensed guide, and only 10 visitors are allowed at a time. No photography is allowed once inside the cave, and only around 300 very motivated tourists make this trek to see the cave for themselves every year. Donning your helmet, headlamp, mask, and gloves, you enter the 65-foot mouth of the cave, and once inside, it narrows significantly to the point where you crawl on your hands and knees in tight spaces while thousands of bats attempting their egress flit and fight past your head, some bouncing off as they retreat. You can feel the rush of air as they sweep past during this once-in-a-lifetime experience. And once inside, you can also see the eyeless white lady, which sounds like one of Mark's cryptids, but it's actually a fish. The blind Bratula is a transparent eel that makes its home there and is the only known species of its kind. There are also shrimp, albino crustaceans, and mealybugs if you're interested in bugs. Book your visit today.
And that snake is actually that Pseudolaphe flavirufa. Flavirufa, and
that
it is,
sounds right.
Sounds right.
And it is, I wouldn't say, I will disagree with the deaf part. All snakes don't have external ears, and they do have, these snakes do have pretty good eyesight. Otherwise,
This particular snake does not, because they've been living in complete darkness for 200 years.
oh, I thought they were moving back into the cave.
No,
Okay,
they
so
live.
it's one of the 3 subspecies of
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
they live in the
Okay,
crags and
yeah.
crevices on the ceiling, and
But yeah.
they don't leave.
The other
so
ones go in and out of the cave,
yeah,
right?
And this,
For the most part.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
Like live on the fringe
Right.
where they're
Well, no, they actually
this group just basically moved in.
But I mean,
their
the other-
homes are in the
the
other
ceiling
ones
and
don't-
crevices.
aren't necessarily found around caves. They're
But what about the cave dwelling one?
they live in the cave.
They don't go in and out?
Apparently not.
Not this one in particular. This Mexican, it probably is a very specific subspecies, but and they don't know for sure. It's just the hypothesis is that these snakes decided once they were in the ceiling structures of these caves and realized they basically had an unlimited supply of food and it was safe in there. So there's no natural predators. They're the top of the food chain. They don't have to leave. So at some point they just said, well, F it, let's just set up shop here. We've got everything, baby.
Put the eggs over there.
Right, exactly. I mean, it has to be quite a sight to see, hundreds of snakes hanging from the ceiling of a cave. I mean, as exciting as it is to have bats rushing past your face and bouncing off you, just watching them have to, it's a pretty dangerous time
I do
coming and
remember-
going for the bats.
I do remember seeing a show
so cool.
about that. I didn't know that it was in Mexico necessarily, but I do remember seeing a
You could
video
probably
of that.
find different species that, probably use this same tactic. It's pretty damn smart, because they got that huge cave outside of Austin, Texas, that you can see, like, I think it's 3 million bats or something come out of that cave every day. I believe it takes something like 3 or 4 hours for it's just like, it darkens the sky when this rush of bats comes out of this cave to feed at night. I mean, just imagine like how many bugs like 3 million bats are eating and how you support that many freaking bats. Texas does have a crap ton of flying insects, so it makes sense, but
Flying insects and flying spiders.
they have flying spiders there?
Well, yes and no. Everywhere has flying spiders.
Yes.
And what I mean by flying spiders is if you ever see a spider like just chilling and he'll like have his butt kind of raised and it's almost not visible to your eye, but it's like a little strand of their silk and they just let it go. And it's basically like a balloon. Like they just let it go. And once they have enough of that silk, the air will actually pick them up and take them. And I think they estimated, there's like there's like a highway in the sky, and it's bugs and spiders and all kinds of stuff. And so like in my head, I'm like, that's probably what they're, that's how they travel. It's
Well, and that's how babies disperse themselves.
Right.
When
Yep.
they hatch out.
And I knew that part. I didn't know that, that was a common mode of travel,
Yep.
even
Yeah.
once you're larger. So I guess it
probably
makes
not
sense.
big ones, but
Right.
anything that's like
Anything small
Smaller,
enough that
yep.
the silk could displace its own weight, I guess.
Storks bring babies.
Yeah, that's true. And I know that
Yes, Georgie.
high altitude balloons have collected all kinds of flying insect and other insect
Yep.
species because of what you're talking about. It's basically like a weird jet stream of
Yep.
insects. Yeah.
you don't want to poke your head up in that because you're just going to be like,
Right.
Where you wear goggles.
Unless you have face mask.
Right.
Yeah, face mask and goggles,
There
probably.
you go.
But
Don't
yeah.
yawn.
no, exactly. I think we've probably reached a bit of a
have.
natural end here, but we still have to review our drinks and snacks. What do you want to start with?
I'm going to start with the Olipop.
Olipop.
I'm going to give it a 8.5.
Eh.
I like it. It's got a decent root beer flavor. I get a little bit of a kind of a weird aftertaste, which, it's like drinking any diet stuff. You actually eventually get used to it.
Right.
But on my initial, I just wish it wasn't $2.50 a pop.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not cheap.
It is not.
Yes, but
It's definitely a
That'll-
treat.
That'll put
Yeah.
some fiber in you.
yeah,
Right.
But it's good.
Yeah. It's definitely got more healthful stuff going
Yeah.
on than, just
It's
popping a Monster or a Bang or, it's not an
Good old
energy
rock
drink
star.
either. But yeah, it's
Right.
definitely, among the vein of like a probiotic sparkling drink. It definitely does its thing. I'm going to go with the 7 because I've had multiple flavors of these. This is actually one of my least favorite of what they have out there. But the orange vanilla is fantastic.
That's
they have a ton of flavors. So, just because I gave this one a 7, if you're interested, grab a variety. That's what I did the
And
first
I heard
time.
the cream soda is supposed to be pretty
Yeah.
Cream soda is really good.
Yeah.
Most of the fruit
And I love
flavors.
cream soda.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the fruit flavors. I think it did a little better with trying to tease root beer out of this. I
It's
think
got
that
birch bark in it.
yeah, and that aftertaste you're talking about, it kind of hits me like a weird sourness, but it's like a sweet sour. It's funky. I think the colder it is, like your first couple of drinks are definitely root beer.
Well, that's why.
And,
I brought
yeah,
it here packed and ice.
Right, and it mellows into something a little different. But I've obviously finished the entire can, and I've had multiple cans of it. So
All right.
right. What did you think, George?
It was good. I give it a 8.
Nice.
And he's a root beer drinker.
It was root beery enough for me.
Right.
very root beerian.
I agree. Tasia,
Oh,
do you
I-
want to put a number on it?
Sure. For me, I'm probably in the 8.5 for sure. Because I still, of course, I still crave that like classic root beer flavor. But it definitely has that more natural root beer flavor, and it
Right.
gives my brain the serotonin boost or the dopamine boost of feeling like it's getting sugar. So,
Right. Yeah, it's
and
like a
then-
placebo
and then,
effect.
and then I don't feel so bad afterwards,
Yeah.
So yeah, no.
Yeah, for all those points, I'm just saying in its own category and Olipop as a whole, I would just put this one as a 7 for me personally.
Yeah.
It's not saying anything wrong. I just say that, if we had a variety pack, I bet you guys would be in the same boat. You'd be like, well, I'm going to have to readjust tasting these other things.
The
Like,
strawberry vanilla one is really good.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a good one.
yeah, they have a lot of, they must have like 8 at least flavors or so.
Like there's a cherry cola, there's the orange one, there's the cream soda, the root beer.
I think the cola one is the other one I didn't care for all that much.
Yeah.
But it was like definitely trying to mimic a cola, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it works in its own way. Depends on what you're into. It's different strokes for different folks, right, Mark? Mm-hmm. Nah, that's right. Snack wise, I freaking actually like these things quite a bit.
I know.
Surprisingly, they're quite dry. Just on the outside, but once you get it kind of all stirred up in the old mouth,
Then it's dry and chewy.
It's working. It works well. It does have its own like Fig Newton-y thing
Yeah.
going on for sure.
Which-
But I like the flavor better than the filling of a Fig Newton by far. The filling is the most interesting thing to me about these. Where did you find these, by the way?
World market.
Yeah. So there's an important fact. If people are looking for these out there, with our huge, popularity, there might be one person needs like, where'd you get those Fig Newton tea cakes? Right.
Give it a number, Bob.
I'm gonna go with, like a 9 on this. It's its own category, but I liked it a lot. So
Go ahead.
It struck me the opposite.
really,
I'd like a 3 or a 4 on it.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have a Big Newton.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, I got a big Newton for you.
Whoa.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
I'm
Like a
gonna
jelly
go 8.75.
Wow. It's busting the 3/4 mark.
Busting the 3/4 mark.
Yeah.
What'd you think of these weird things?
I actually only took one bite of mine.
There you
I'm
go.
gonna put it pretty far down. For me, I'm a texture person,
Ah.
and the combination of the really dry with the sticky on the inside, just was not a good feeling for my palate. The flavor was okay, but again, like I said, it really reminded me of that red bean, and I'm not a fan of red bean either. So it was I think that if you like this, you like that flavor combination, it has a good density of that flavor, but it just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
So probably like a 3.
A mouthful of dry cornmeal with
Yeah.
some Big Newton
Yeah.
filling.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we all had kind of a flip flop of
Yeah.
Yeah.
my review of the drink versus your
Yeah.
review
Yeah.
of the snack. So
Yeah.
it all works, we'll even out, yin and yang.
It's really fun to try new things. So I love going to World Market or H Mart or like a Wajimaya and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Those
Yeah.
are my favorite places
Yeah.
to get snacks.
Paldo
so.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah. Green tea Kit Kats. Those,
I have some of those.
Those
I
are
love them.
those are a treat.
They have those at World Market.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do like those a lot.
They are.
Yeah. Interesting. They sound weird, but they're actually very good.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Thank you very much for enlightening all of us on, taxidermy specifically,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
beetles eating flesh and
Rat in a bucket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's funner to talk about than painting,
Yeah.
although I do more painting than taxidermy, but taxidermy is funner to talk about for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, both probably equally as messy for your clothing at some point or
Oh.
another. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a specific pair of pants and a specific hoodie that I wear while I'm painting, and they're like my paint clothes, and they are just, yes, it's
Yeah.
a lot, lots of paint everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, with the pouring stuff, do you ever get into like the swinging bucket thing or any of that, like the ones with motion involved?
Yeah, I would love to. I think it would be fun. I also, on one hand, I really like to take inspiration from other artists, and I don't think there's anything wrong with taking inspiration from other artists, but that specific technique feels too not mine
Right.
to use. So that's probably one it seems cool, but it's
Yeah.
probably not one I'll ever get into.
Right.
So
I watched
yeah.
a guy that was doing the pours out of a colander to
Yeah,
just
I know
add a little texture.
And I
but-
know who that is. So
Nice.
I don't know that person, but because I know,
Right.
just mentioning, I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
kinda
Maybe,
like- right.
Like.
Yeah, you kind of want to find your own thing
Yep.
and stay in your own lane.
Yep. Well, it's
Right.
like the technique of dirty pour painting is like it's like an everybody thing that's not being gate kept, and
Right.
not saying that the swinging buckets are gate kept, but it feels like that's something that somebody very specifically put together, and
Right.
a few people have done since, and it's not as widely used as a technique, so it doesn't feel like it's mine
Right.
to use. If that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
like everyone that throws paint at a canvas is Jackson Pollock.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like I feel like in one sense, for me, I'm not talking bad about anybody who wants to try that. Go ahead, please do. But for me, it just doesn't hit the mark. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it just gets views. It's fun to watch
Yes,
and look at.
yeah.
But,
Mhm.
right. As in terms of would I ever hang one up in my house? Probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, that's what we got for today. And,
All right,
Yeah. Hope
good.
everyone loved all the breaking announcements and bird squawks and people chatter. I mean, there's a lot of white noise.
Yeah.
They might be able to fall asleep to this one easier than most of the time. Anyway,
If they
thank
got
you
it.
again for
If they
coming
got
in.
this
Yeah.
far.
No. Thank you
Yeah.
for having
Fun.
me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
All right. Peace out.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.